Hey guys, just finished watching The Flash, Season 5, Episode 10, The Flash and the Furious. What an interesting title for this episode. It's kind of really not a good title for this episode. I mean, this episode does deal a little bit with one fast car, but the idea of it being, I think with this title and this whole season dealing with kind of a lot more of like meta tech and stuff, and there is meta tech and dealing with cars and stuff in here, but they could have had, I think this title would have been a lot better for something that they had like a street gang, if they had like a bunch of fast racing cars who kind of a bunch of like cars that were affected by the meta stuff inside, and I just didn't think it really doesn't fit the whole, because you think of it as the Flash and the Furious, obviously it's a play on the Fast and the Furious and those popular movies and stuff, but it doesn't really kind of, I mean, I've only watched the first two of those movies, I haven't watched any of the other ones, but to me, it doesn't really kind of play on that. It doesn't kind of have a Fast and Furious vibe whatsoever. There's very few, if you cut all the car chase scenes in here, there's the one at the beginning where Barry's powers go crazy, and that's about it. There's really nothing, there's like that one, and then there's the one at the end, and that's it. And there, in the middle, there's a little bit of one, but it's really just, she just kind of stops another car with that car, so it really doesn't do much. So the title here doesn't really fit for this episode, but oh well. So we start off this episode picking right up where we left off, not in the last episode, because last episode was the crossover. The last episode, which was episode 8, before the crossover, where we ended with Nora talking to Reverse Flash in 2049. Now, I kept thinking about that as they were talking, and like, why is it Tom Cavanaugh playing him? I mean, why is it not Matt Lecter, the guy who's been playing him on Legend of Tomorrow, who played him at the end of season 1 there when Eddie killed himself. But then I kept thinking that this whole thing about with the first Reverse Flash, everything about that thing is completely messed up. The whole fact that Eddie, Iris's boyfriend from the first season, when he kills himself, that should have wiped out everything. Without the Reverse Flash killing his mother, if that should have created its own Flashpoint timeline, because if the Reverse Flash doesn't go back, is not born, then he doesn't go back in time, and he doesn't end up, killing Nora Allen, which then Barry grows up with Nora Allen and Henry Allen as his parents. So he grows up with them and never goes to live with Joe and Iris West. So that never happens. Maybe he still hangs out with them because he was he had a crush on her and stuff in school and stuff, and he kind of still starts to hang out with them and stuff. But he doesn't go and live with them. That never happens. Let alone, we don't know. Eddie and Eobard. Eobard was not Eddie's son or anything like that. There's still a few generations in between Eddie when he killed himself in the first season and the Thawne that we see here at the end of this season when he ends up coming back in time and do that. There's probably, I'm not sure how many generations, but there's a couple of generations in there. There might be 10 or 20 generations in there, and we don't know how much how important any of them can be. If they're smart too, they could have been really important to the timeline too. So just there's so much going on here that just kind of doesn't make sense. So trying to wrap your head around this whole thing with seeing there's an Eobard in the future who looks like Tom Cavanaugh, so he looks like Harrison Wells. If we remember back in season 1 when he went and he actually used the device to kind of make himself look like and take over Dr. Wells' personality and taking over his looks and stuff. We never really kind of we never really finished on with that. So you have this version, he's in 2099. It's like, okay, so maybe there's a one still in 2099 that's there from before he went and killed, Barry's mother. It's just, this whole thing is kind of mixed up with all that. So that really kind of jumbled me up. But I guess this one, there's a version of him still existing where he went, killed Barry's mother, and then came back to his timeline, because he really doesn't, he gets killed, he gets erased from the time, like it's really all confused, because in 2049, there should never have been an Eobard that looks like Tom Cavanaugh, that looks like Harrison Wells, because that should just be the guy who's been playing him on Legend of Tomorrow, who's part of the Legion of Doom and all that stuff, but it really doesn't make sense as to why he's here, but yet this is after he killed Barry, so it's, I guess, it's unclear, but it just doesn't make sense as to why we keep having him. And the whole point of even having him, it just is all kind of mixed up there. But we see that he didn't tell Nora that he ended up killing his grandmother. He killed Barry's mother. She didn't know that. She just stopped starting to trust him. And then we go back, and that's where we end. Then we go back to regular time, and everyone's kind of wondering what's going on. They're trying to set some stuff up. We're finding out that Cecile is back to work, and they mention that Joe is visiting Wally, but they don't mention where, because we haven't seen Wally on. He hasn't been on anywhere near the Legend of Tomorrow. We haven't seen him, so where is he? He's out kind of discovering himself and all that stuff. I guess that's where he's still doing his own thing there, but where is he? Is he, last we saw him, well, when Rip had found him in Legend of Tomorrow, he was in like Japan, China, or something like that, kind of with monks and doing stuff like that. So that's that where he is? And to Joe, because Joe, it sounded like Joe, they said that Joe brought his new daughter, to visit him, so that, to keep him away from all the dangerous many people in Central City and stuff. I get that, but if Wally's out with monks or something like that, then that's kind of doesn't make sense. I just wish they had just kind of given us a location as to where he is, just so that we can get an idea as to where he is. Is in another city. It would be just kind of nice to know. Maybe he's in Star City, or somewhere else like that, or even just Coast City or somewhere we never see. Right? I think that could be interesting, just to get an idea as to where he is. Right? I think that would be kind of nice. So we see that Sherlock is kind of trying to decode more of Nora's books. So he looks like he's trying to decode more of that. We really don't get too much about that until the end of the episode. We see that Cecile has got her powers kind of going kind of wonky. She's getting these crazy vibes from the prosecutor she's trying to prosecute, which is the Weather Witch. We see Caitlin ends up taking splinters out of Cecile's hands from the Dark Manor. It's like, it's about time. And he even comments on that, but it's like, doesn't answer the question as to why didn't she take these splinters out before, It seems like she worked on his hands right when he got cut, and he did her doctor thing and healed them, and then did nothing until about now. It's been like months or something since he got cut, and he has pieces. Those pieces have been there for months, and she hasn't tried again. She doesn't try new things. Every time they have, it hasn't been another opportunity in like a month or so for her to kind of try different things she never thought of, just tweezing them out. Or this would be a great opportunity for them to call up the Legend and say, hey, Adam, I need you here to Ray. Can you just kind of, microscopically shrink down and take them out yourselves? That would have been an interesting, it'd be a cool thing to see, but obviously, I guess if the Legends were not out there, that would be something cool to see, something like that. And that's kind of something that I keep wondering with the Legends. I like the show and stuff, but I wouldn't mind if the show got canceled and all the characters stayed in the Arrowverse, but they didn't have their own show. They just were reoccurring characters that could appear anywhere, anytime, anyhow, right? That would be kind of cool. But let's get back to this show. So we see her kind of taking them out, and it's about time that she's doing that. We see she's able to control Killer Frost's powers and call her up on demand, using her partial of her powers to kind of heal up the wound and stuff. That was kind of cool. Although I don't know why, the way they kind of animated it, the way they did the special effects, like she just posts her hands like that far, and she's able to kind of to make a small line, which is kind of weird. I'd like to see how she's able to control it more. If she wants to be more sneaky and use her powers without letting people know, it would be kind of nice to see her maybe she's able to just use her finger and kind of to gently go over it and be more accurate. I don't know, I thought the idea of having her full hand go like that, maybe she's starting to learn, but maybe as we get to see her controlling her powers a bit more, maybe it'd be cool to see her, be able to be more delicate and more precise with her powers, rather than having to do it like that, because I feel like there's going to be a time eventually in the future where she's going to need to be a bit more stealthy with it, and having to, a big blast of cold and stuff and all that would really not, obviously every time she uses her powers there would be some sort of, when you're outside in the cold and you see your breath, right, there'd be that kind of effect anytime she uses her powers. But if she just had a little dot from her finger rather than her full hand, it'd be more discreet if she needs to in the future, right? I think that's something I guess she needs to practice with. So that was cool there. We see Barry trying to stop a Lamborghini, and he tries to touch it, and it's a Meditech, or the key fob is Meditech. And so that was an interesting idea. I just didn't really use it very interesting. Now, they do leave it open to do it more. So I think that could be really cool, is if they redo the character or play with the character again in a different way. It could be kind of interesting. So I think that was really cool seeing that, and he's out for the most of the episode. I guess this is due to him being so heavily involved in the previous episode, the crossover. I don't know. I just kind of weird as he was just kind of out for no reason. I would rather have had him just knock him out for the beginning and end of the episode, and it's just like, okay, obviously he's out, just like Supergirl. Melissa Benoist wasn't able to film the beginning of the season, so there we had an episode where she was, Supergirl was completely out of the episode. She was in the episode, but we never saw her face, so that a stunt double could just do all her scenes with a mask on type thing. So it kind of seems like they're doing it this way. I'm not sure if that's really the reason, but it was okay the way it worked out. So we see Nora is able to has to go on the stand, because Barry was supposed to be on stand in court for Cecile, and she has to go, and Nora has to go in her place. And I think that's kind of interesting, because Nora's kind of brand new at doing this, at least according to the CCPD and the courts and stuff like that. They'd look at her history and go, you've only been on for so long, really? How long have you been studying this? And then Barry set her up as officially and all that stuff. Okay, that makes sense. But do they really have all this? I feel like the defendant's lawyer would probably have been like, whoa, a switch up? That does not exist. You can't take his assistant and put his assistant in there to replace him. So I think that would have been a bit. It wouldn't have worked really legally. The defendant would have stopped that right away. The defendant's lawyer. I think that really would not have worked. And instead, what they could have done is they could have had Ralph sit there, pretend to be Barry, right? Use his powers to pretend to be Barry, and then have an earpiece on that with Nora saying this stuff. So you could have still got Nora kind of doing it and knowing her stuff and doing all this stuff. But it could have been via Ralph playing Barry, and I think that would have been way kind of interesting, and it would have been something to do for Ralph, which we haven't seen him in a while, and it's like no explanation as to where he is. I can't remember where we last saw him, so. And I think that would have been interesting, and that would have been a more fun way to do that scene. And I don't know why they didn't use that scene. I think that would have been that would have been more accepted, rather than trying to change a person on the stand last minute to Now, if we still had someone like Julian when he was on the show, who's an actual another full on forensic scientist, whereas Barry, yes, they said that he kind of set her up and stuff, and as a CSI, but she has to be only an assistant, because there's no way that they have any legal schooling all to provide to prove that she's actually done all this stuff, because her schooling is all from the future, not in this time. So there's nothing to really back her up to set her up as, oh yeah, the CCPD would just say, just on your word, Barry, we're going to give her complete credentials as a CSI. That doesn't really cut it. Whereas having her talking to to Ralph through an earpiece and stuff, and so he could pretend to be Barry, would have done the same stuff. She show that she knows her stuff, show how much she knows and how much she's learned from Barry, but without the whole without the whole her just taking his spot on stand type thing. I know, it just kind of threw me off there. So we see that Weather Witch, after all that, she ends up kind of giving herself up just in the court type of thing. She's like, yeah, I deserve to get everything. And then that's where things kind of end with the court. Then we see Cisco finds out that he might have a cure for metahuman, from the metahuman gene stuff, and Kaylin really doesn't like it, and so that really ends. That Kaylin's not really sure about it and really doesn't like it, because she doesn't want a cure, but Cisco wants a cure. We see that Silver Ghost, which is the girl who has a key fob, ends up taking Weather Witch. She ends up stealing her from the thing and all that stuff. And this whole episode, like, a lot of it is she's all like, Weather Witch is all, like, she doesn't want to escape, then why leave? Why not just sit there and say no, because she must know, like, obviously the transport truck is which these transport trucks are always alone. There's never like an escort of police. Like, that was kind of silly, just transporting this person, which had a meta power, but not entirely. Like, they should have had like one or two cop cars following the truck. That would have made more sense. But Weather Witch gets taken by the Silver Ghost, and at no point does she try and fight her, try and leave, because she must realize that there must be a camera on that truck somewhere, and also she can probably see as she was walking to the Lamborghini that the two drivers the armored vehicle were watching too, and probably going to be on the stand too, could testify that she was taken by against her will, and I don't know why she even wanted to leave like that, and she could have resisted, and that would have helped her cause, and she didn't. So I think that's all on her there. So we see Nora kind of brings Weather Witch to the police without her even trying to give up. But like I said, she didn't even try to escape from the Silver Ghost to give up in herself. She could have just called 911 and say, hey, I got kidnapped and something like that, or whatever, and tried to give herself up, but she doesn't. We see Killer Frost and ends up destroying Cisco's research on the to make the cure and stuff, and then Cisco just says that he wants to cure himself, a cure of his power, so that he can have a normal life, and then so that's kind of, I don't really know how I feel about that yet. I guess I don't really like the idea of him wanting to cure himself, because Cisco's always been the guy who's like, coming up with the names, coming up with this. We haven't seen him come up with any names in a long time. We haven't seen him nerd out on this stuff, and he's always represented the audience getting excited for the comic book accurate names, the comic book accurate costumes, and the pop culture reference, pop culture t-shirts, and now he's become this kind of sad version of himself that's none of that, and now he wants to get rid of his powers. Like, come on, you're just ruining the character. I really don't like the way where this is going for him. I guess they're on this path, they need to keep on this path, but hopefully he needs to come out with it with an idea of, maybe Caitlin and Barry and XS and Nora, they can kind of give him a new appreciation for his powers, or maybe somehow something coming up could happen where if he didn't have his powers, they would be dead. Maybe he, in saving someone, maybe he later on he meets someone and he stopped being Vibe for a while, but then because he has his powers, he ends up saving them. Or later on, he's on a date with someone, something happens, and because his powers, where he was trying out a temporary cure that removed his powers temporarily, he wasn't able to save someone, and therefore he regrets not having his powers. So I think that would be a cool way to move that, and I get the idea of where they're going with this cure. I like the idea of them researching that, but I don't want him to lose his powers. I like the kind of the politics playing around with making a cure, not forcing it on people and all that stuff, kind of like the way they tried to do in X-Men Last Stand, but failed to doing it. And I think that could be something cool, playing with something like that, but I really don't want Cisco to have it. So hopefully there could be a way in the future, maybe he goes out on a date with someone, and then something happens, metahuman happens, and that person dies, and he, if he had his powers, he would have been able to do it, and that could be something to play with to see as to where things go. So I think hopefully they have an idea of where things go, but hopefully the end point of the storyline with him wanting to take away his powers does not end with him taking away completely and never having his powers ever again, because that would ruin the character. But if not, then I think this could be an interesting storyline for the character. So we'll have to wait and see as to where things kind of go with that. So we see Barry, we find out that he's reading Heatwave's book. I imagine this is the book that, if you've been watching Legend of Tomorrow, he had a magic book for a little while, or for a couple of episodes, where everything he wrote came to life, and even the characters he wrote came to life, and he had fake imaginary girlfriend that he had wrote from his book that came to life. So I'm assuming this is the same book. I think that's kind of interesting seeing that, and it would be cool. I like the kind of cross promotion of these things. I think they need to do more things like that. Now these little things where it's like these little fluff things about Mick's book is cool, like those little crossovers, but I like to see a little bit more meaty crossovers than just his book. But I like this, and I like to see more little crossovers, little connections between all the shows like this. So we see Silver Ghost ends up freeing Weather Witch and gives her staff back. And then she's kind of giving up all this stuff. She had all these opportunities where she's like, no, I want to stay here. And she was so mad at XS for putting her in prison. But when Silver Ghost shows up to give her staff back, she doesn't ever say, no, I'm going to just stay here. And Silver Ghost just kind of walks into the police station. Yeah, she sets off all the cars, on the cop cars for everyone to go out, but someone's going to stay inside and watch the people inside. Clearly, all the cop cars being set off is a distraction. Like, how dumb are all those cops in that prison, or in the station where they have a holding cell like that? Like, they're not gonna leave them there, and everyone's not gonna leave out there. And there was only like 3 or 4. There was the one girl in the parking lot, and then there was only 3 people that left. So still, like, what, another 5 or 6 people probably in the building, and she's just able to walk in. Like, it was just kind of silly that we see Silver Ghost just has the staff. Like, we didn't see her how she broke into the lockup, which I'm assuming that staff was not just lying around; it was locked up. So it's just like, all that whole, like, didn't make sense. All that, if Weatherwitch wanted to stay, she could have just said, "No, I'm gonna stay," and just and yell help, help type thing, and not want to leave. She's just kind of ruining herself. Every opportunity she had to kind of not escape, she never took it, never tried to not escape at all. So I think that was just kind of all on her. So they end up stealing a Wayne Tech car from Argus, so I think that's kind of interesting. I think that'll be cool. Maybe that's going to be another connection there to the Batwoman show, which, if I'm not mistaken, got a pilot order, so I think that'll be cool to see more connections there, but I just don't understand as to what the purpose was of that car. So hopefully, maybe on Arrow, we can get an idea of what that car was for, and get maybe it would be nice to see Lila in the middle of the next episode of Arrow episode. I'm not sure if it's on this week or next week Arrow, but to see that Lila, if we see Lila in the next episode, or even Diggle, since he's highly working for Argus now, just see him get a text saying, "Oh, damn it, we lost a car. I gotta go deal with this." Someone lost a car, and apparently Barry, and they damaged the car type thing. Maybe he gets a text from Barry or from Caitlin or Cisco or someone like that, or even just from Argus themselves saying that, "Oh, we lost this car. We got to go deal with this." And he gets that. I think that'd be cool. Or maybe he gets a text from someone from Argus, or something, a message for him from Argus, and then after that he gets a call from Cisco or someone, where we don't need to hear their voice, we just need to see them on the phone. It's like, oh, cool, and then it kind of connects the Argus part of this to the Arrow part, since Diggle is working for them and Lila is working for them. So usually we don't see Lila too much, and that's okay, the connection. But with Diggle working, we need to see his end of this, and what is, or even just see him get called away to deal with this, just a little scene quickly that connects the writers of this, of Flash and Arrow, are both aware of what's going on in this, and the writers of the Arrow show are aware that Argus was being used in the Flash this season, so they need to kind of reference that a little bit in there. So we see Nora gets hit by a missile in midair, so the car kind of shoots a missile, and then she hits a button and kind of remote detonates the button, but Nora's moving at light speed. How the hell did she, she launches the missile, and so Nora's still, like, when Nora moves and the missile's in the midair, that's too fast for her to hit. Oh, the move her finger from the on button, from the launch button to the detonate in air button. Like, she's moving at light speed. Like, how is she able to kind of remote detonate it in air? Like, that doesn't make sense. She should not have had time to even lift her finger off the button, and then lift her finger off the button, register that, oh, Nora's moving out of the way, I'm going to hit the in-air, detonate, remote detonate button. That's like, literally, when she's moving in like 1/100th of a second, not even, like, super fast, like faster than the human eye can even see. So to her, it's just, Nora's gone. And that's it. And then the missile's gone, and it's out of the way, and it's hit something else or whatever. It's just kind of silly as to how she was able to see, like, she had like super speed vision too, to be able to see Nora doing that. And Nora should have kind of not just let the missile go and hit whatever and cause damage. She should have just taken it slow motion. And also what they did a lot in Smallville is, just move bullets out of the way, and like the Matrix stuff, or if you go to the what was it, Days of Future Past, the classic Quicksilver scenes where he moves the bullets out of the air, do something like that, where she stops, she sees the rocket, just point the rocket up and shoot the rocket up, straight up, and it just explodes high in the air. So I think that would have made more sense than kind of making, like, that person able to see and how fast she's going and kind of remote detonating it. That was kind of silly. So we see Weather Witch ends up giving up the car. She helps stop Silver, like, she helps stop Silver Ghost a little bit, gives up the car, but they end up getting away. They're trying to make her kind of like, and Barry even says it at the end as he's freed from this cell type thing, that she's kind of, Brother Witch is now Nora's Captain Cold and stuff, and they just didn't do a very good job of doing that. I mean, yeah, they're trying to make her good and stuff like that. They're trying to look for good in the wrong person. The way they did it with Captain Cold, it gradually went in there. I don't think the writers at the beginning of that storyline had an aim to make him a good guy. When they first slowly started to change him away from the dive deeper in the relationship between Flash and Captain Cold, and reveal Flash's identity to Captain Cold and all that stuff. I don't think they had the end game was to bring him into Legend of Tomorrow, making a hero and have him die a hero. I don't think that was ever they were able to see that far in the future. So here they're already trying to see way too far in the future, and it doesn't feel organic. It feels kind of rushed and kind of terribly done. If they wanted to make us feel for the character, then they would have, when she was in prison, she would have stayed in prison, and every time she was being freed from prison, she would have said, no, I'm going to stay here. I don't want to leave. I don't want to be my father. I want to do the right thing and all that stuff, and she never did. It's like it was just kind of terrible there. So we see at the end of this episode, we see Caitlin ends up helping make Cisco make the cure. I think that's going to be interesting to see as to where things go with that, how that's going to play out. But like I said, I don't want to see Cisco lose his powers and take his powers away. Hopefully he could come out, he can have a moment before he completely takes away his powers. Maybe he makes, a prototype of serum type thing, take away powers, and it kind of take away his powers, but for a certain limited amount of time, right? I think that could be interesting. Or serum takes away his powers. We don't know how long it's going to last. And then he meets someone, something happens, and then someone dies on his watch. A civilian dies on his watch because he did not have his powers. And I think that could be an interesting thing to see and play with that kind of, that kind of thing type thing. Or he's in a situation where he doesn't have, his powers are gone because of his serum, but because his emotions are so high and the stress of the situation, his powers end up coming back just in the nick of time to save someone. And I think that could be really cool. And then bringing back kind of to the Vibe character, and also bringing back the kind of lighthearted Cisco who, was creating these supervillain names and was, geeking out all about all these superhero suits and stuff, and making all these new superhero suits. Is now every time Oliver or someone needs a new suit, they always use him. Oh, we got this from Cisco. Oh, we got this from Cisco. But this sad, mopey version of Cisco doesn't feel like he'd be up to making a new costume. He wouldn't be as excited to doing that, on his free time when he's not, fighting, working for the Star Labs and all that stuff. So hopefully they can bring that back with this storyline. But I really don't think I don't know about this storyline. I just don't like the Cisco taking away his power. So we'll have to wait and see as to where things go. So we find out that Thawne is dying, and that's when, because of that, we see XS, their Nora, kind of going to do one more thing for him or whatever. So we'll see where things go with that. That's going to be interesting to see is how things go. And we see Sherlock goes in to see Nora, goes to see Gideon and tries to look up the files about Nora West Allen, and finds out that Nora has deleted all the files about herself from Gideon. And so I think that's going to be interesting to see as to where things go with that. Looks like we're going to have a bit more stuff with Cicada in the next episode, so hopefully that'll be fun, and we'll have to wait and see as to where things kind of go with all this, because this episode, I guess, is somewhat of a filler episode, but there's still a little bit tie-in with this kind of this Eobard Thawne storyline. But this Eobard Thawne storyline, then you also have this the Cicada storyline, so I'm not sure. I guess it's a filler episode, or this Eobard Thawne storyline is a filler episode. I'm really not sure, since it deals with Nora. Maybe it's not a filler episode. But these villain of the weeks with these meta attacks is kind of getting a bit. I know I would like to stick more with Cicada, or have Cicada pieced a little bit in here, just to see what he's doing and what he's up to not have it be completely a filler-ish episode. I mean, it's not a filler episode because of the Nora and Reverse Flash stuff, but really you could just watch the beginning and the end stuff with the Nora and the Nora Reverse Flash stuff at the beginning, and then the Nora and then the future stuff at the end, and then the Sherlock stuff at the end with Gideon, and that's it. Those are the only 3 scenes you really need from this to move on, because the rest is just, you have these, it's just the villain of the week. Yeah, they'll be back as a team up, but you don't really need their story to move into the next one. their powers are going to be pretty self-explanatory as soon as they show up wherever they show up next. So we'll have to wait and see as to where things go. So let me know what you think, guys, about this episode in the comments below. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.
I'm Captain America, here to talk to you about one of the most valuable traits a soldier or student can have.
Subscribing.
Sometimes subscribing is the key to victory. Sometimes it leads to very little, and it seems like it's not worth it. And you wonder why you waited so long for something so disappointing. How many more of these?
You're still here.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, guys. Peace.
It's over.